recently updated at the moment. So we are pretty much getting ready to go ahead with this. Um, so what we're gonna do is open up here. So once you open up the app, you're gonna have pretty much the option just to search your course. So enter in your course name. Um, to be fair, if your GPS is turned on, it's going to be picking up um, courses that are local to you. So if it's a local course, you probably won't have to search it. If you do, work away. Select your course, start round. It'll give you the option to pick a T set. The best option is to pretty much do the back T set, just because that's going to give you more accurate distances going forward. If you're hearing any background noise, my mic is really sensitive and it's picking up my girlfriend walking past. Uh, Say hi, Melissa. She thinks I'm giving out about her. God only knows what she was saying. You probably heard it. I didn't. So yeah, so then once you have your course selected, your T's, the whole lot, you pretty much can hit start round and it's going to open up the course for you. So I'm going to start with the golf course at Dove Mountain, um, and we're going to pretty much start working away. So what I'm going to do first is obviously do what I was saying before. Just make sure that your course actually fits um, into this plot. So it's roughly short. It's I think just short of 2,200 yards in length and width, and then diagonally it's like crazy amount, 3,000, nearly 3,100. So handy thing is that what I usually do is I'll pick, I'll pick a corner. So you the really cool thing about this 18 birdies app as well is you can move around the tee position. So you'll see a little ball on a tee there when you open up the app. You can fully move that around, so you can set what distance it is from any position on that golf course to any point. The thing is, though, is that if you have it selected on the first hole, you can't move that green position. That'll always be there. But the tee position you can, so that's pretty cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move that tee position to the just to one corner of the golf course. So, and then I'm going to go to the furthest point away from there, lengthwise, which is 1,400 yards, which is bang on. I'm happy enough with that. Just going to pick the another long point on it, and that is 2,013 yards, just about going to fit that one in as well. And then I'm just going to choose another point as well from here, just to cover all bases, and again just making sure that the course actually fits. So let's go over to that far point there, and that is that's 1,000 yards, perfect. So good news, this course is actually going to fit. Um, so from here, I'm looking at. Let me see. That's the tee box there. So I'm going to start roughly maybe about 200 yards inside. So I'm going to go, and this is pretty much this tool here. So it's on the edit menu option here. It's the measure tool. This is pretty much um, this is your baby. This is something you're going to be using the whole time for RCRs, just to be measuring each and every single reference point to make sure you can get everything as accurate as possible. Without using this tool, impossible to create a real course recreation. I mean, you can do an inspired version, absolutely, but you're never going to get it as accurate as you want without this. So I'm going to move. So start there and move it in just about 200 yards. That'll do there. I'm okay with that. And I'm going to move it up again about another 200 yards just to give us some buffer room. Okay. Yeah, I'm happy enough with that. I'm not going to be too anal about where that is. Okay. This is really bright, so what I might try and do, see if I can just turn the weather. So using the R1 button, you can skip over to the next menu and click on your environment. Now what I'm just going to do here is try to make this as dull as I possibly can, just a bit easier to see, I suppose, for everyone. So we're going to change the time there to just before 10 to 7 in the morning. Wow, it looks beautiful, doesn't it? Right. So just, again, everything becomes a lot easier for everyone to see. So we're going to get started. What I tend to do first is just to get a overall kind of path of the hole, basically um, the direction in which it would flow. So I'm going to use 200 yards here as our starting point, and then we're going to go back to our 18 birdies app. Okay, so we click on the first hole. Now the first hole is giving me, for this particular hole, it's 460 yards tee to green, and it's got a slight little bit of a dog leg right. So from to the exact pin position it's giving here, it's 458. So so what I'm going to do is, the really handy thing about this measuring tool is this distance marker. So I can go here and go click measure, and I can just choose any random point and start. But if I want to continue on from a spot that I've already created, click on distance marker, add a distance marker, and it automatically uses that point as your reference. So the hole, again, it's pretty much a straightforward hole. So it's 460 yards. It's 458 to the flag, it's telling me. So I'm going to go with that as a reference point. So 458.09, we'll take it. So what I do from here then is I go ahead and just lay down the hole. So by going into your edit menu again, it's your middle one. It's pretty much going to be where the majority of what you do, it revolves around this menu. So you go to create ad, and you go to create holes. So what you do then is you go back to that point at the first tee, which is here, and you're just going to plop that down there. Okay. Now every hole has 3 points. It has the tee, fairway, and green. Okay, so at the moment this hole is very straight. When in turn in real life, it's actually got a little bit of a dog leg to the right. So on the app, when it opens up, it gives you that little reference point in the middle where you can choose to see how far it is to that point and how far it is from that point to the green. So when this opens up for me, it's given the middle of the fairway is 273 from the tee box and 187 to the flag. So if you look up there on the top of the screen, it tells me how many yards it is to the tee box and how many yards it is to the green. Now sadly, because there is no green, it can't tell me how close we are. So I'm just going to plot this down anywhere random around here, about 273, and then I'm going to go up to where that reference point is up here, and plop that down. So now what it's done is it's actually inputted I actually forgot to do something. Here we go. So what it's done is it's actually placed down some rough and heavy rough there for me. So what you need to do when that happens is click into the settings menu again. Instead of going into environment like last time, go into core settings. From there you can just scroll down to your rough, and you can just turn that all the way back to nothing, and then scroll down further to your heavy rough and do the same thing. Now the reason why we're doing that is because when we put in rough, we want it to be our own created rough, not some auto-generated stuff, because again, it's not authentic. I forgot actually tee boxes are on, so again, reduce them down because we're going to create them from scratch as well. Excuse me. Okay, so going back to when we open up the hole, it's got that 273 to the middle of the fairway, 187 from there to the green. So let's go back down to this waypoint here. Having a bit of trouble there. Okay, so hover over it. You've got the option there to move waypoint. So we actually weren't too far off with the distance to the green. We just need to move it into there to about 183. So move waypoint, and as you see, as we start moving this in, oh, it's 187, sorry, not 183. In my own head there, I was like, that doesn't make sense. Okay, so what's going to happen is we're going to keep it at, try and keep that yards to T at 273, and you can start to watch that green up the very top. It's gone to 186 now, we just need that to go to 187. There we go, so 273, 187. There's the middle of the fairway there, so that's the small little dog leg, okay? And what we're going to do first is we're going to work on the tee boxes, okay? And I suppose just something I know I forgot to mention, meant to mention it in the first part as well, is that when it comes to the elevations side with the 18 Birdies app, the elevations do come at a price, unfortunately. It's a couple of quid a month. It's a small investment. I like it, I do it. You don't have to do it if you're fairly happy to take on trying to guess those elevations yourself, work away. But to get it really, really accurate, the few quid, it's worth it for the results you can get with it. So we have 3 tee boxes here in the first hole. They're all a bit not madly shaped, just not going to be as straightforward as I thought. Okay, so again, using that 18 Birdies app, we can go through and we can see there that I've got from the tee position 1 yard back and 10 yards forward. That is the length of the tee box. So using that waypoint there, that red line, as a reference point, I'm just going to come back. One yard. Too far there now. And we're going to go forward. That 1 yard plus another 10. Okay. Again, those little points, whatever, I'm not too fussy about that. I mean, if you really want to get that anal about it, off you go, But I'll just let you know it's going to break your heart. Okay, so from the tee peg, we're going to go out 5 either side. So I need to come, actually it's not at 5 either side from the tee peg, it's from about 5.5 yards up. I'm going to measure 5 out. And then just go back 10. So to go back the 5 and add another 5 on. So that's kind of that's pretty much a reference point for the first couple of holes. Okay, so we've got, or sorry, the first couple of holes. That's basically for the first tee box. So it's going to be a circle. We're going to plant it later on, but I'm just showing you how to go ahead and map that one out. So then going back to the app again, what we can do from there is we can move around that reference point, and I'm going to move it to the next tee box. So then back of the next tee box is 37 yards from the tee, and it's 421 to the green. So what I need to do is, again, just come back here. I can see there I've got that measuring tool down. Distance marker is down there at the bottom of the screen. Click on that, Add to distance marker, it automatically uses it for you. Saves you having to try and get really specific on where you're having it. So we go up 37 yards. And 421, it's pretty much bang on this line again, so I'm going to just keep it with that. So it's 427 and 121 to the front, and the furthest point on that is 50 yards from the tee and 408 yards to the green. So we're going to come straight back to that tee peg here, hit that distance marker, add the distance marker again, and off we go. So there's that's the back of the tee box there. Now we need to go find 50 yards and 408 to the green. So 50 yards and 408 to the green. Now it is a little bit off center, just a tiny bit of a smidge, so I'm going to come over here, buddy, about a yard. So that gives me the front and back of the next tee box, and then it's just getting the distances then to different points on that tee box as well, just to make sure that we get it as accurate as possible. So 48 yards from the tee. Again, just it's an awful lot of rinsing and repeating here. So what did I say it was? Sorry, 48, and then to the green is 410. So 48 and 410. It's pretty bang on there. And let's choose another point. So we got 45 yards and 414. Now, what I really wish I could do is do like an interactive video using the 18 Birdies app, but to be fair, it is very, very straightforward. A small bit of playing around with it and you'll be well able to use it in no time, like no doubt. So what did I say? 45 yards up and 414. There we go. So that's the furthest out point on the left, that's the furthest out point on the right. So I'm just going to pick one or two more points because this tee box is a little bit different. It's not like your perfect circle or anything like that. I love when you've got perfect circle or perfect square tee boxes. So straightforward, so easy. Sadly, not all courses come like that. So this one is 41 yards, and it's going to be 417 to the green. So just doing that lovely rinse and repeat. You'll be sick of me saying that soon enough, but I'm going to just keep saying it. And 41, 417. Just get another look at that tee box. Just gonna right there. I'm just gonna pick one more point, so it's 37 and 421. So 37 yards. Oh, wrong one there. 37, 421. Perfect. So that's pretty much going to be our second tee box there. So it's pretty much going to wrap around here, comes in to here, down, and then wraps around out here. Okay, so moving on to the next tee box then. A little bit further ahead then again is the bones of 50, 57 yards from the tee, 401 to the green. And the front of the tee box then is 69 yards away and 390 to the green. Okay, there. Okay, 69. Yeah, 69, 390. A bit further to the right, actually. It wasn't to the left. Okay, I'm actually just going to go back in here and double check this now because that makes far more sense. Sometimes if things don't seem like they're working out perfectly for you, like they're not translating across right, click onto the next hole, click back, and it actually kind of rejigs itself. So I was actually a yard too far out there, which is probably why it was giving me some strange ass directions. So 68 and 390. Gonna use this one's kind of a square-like circle, if that even makes remotely any bit of sense to you at all. Um, so it's going to be 58 yards and 401 to the green. Ooh, did I press? I didn't. Hold on. Jumped the gun there a little bit. So, sorry, I need to go back there now again. So 58, 401. Okay, let's pick another one there again. So we've got 63 and 395. So this one is just like hangs slightly further out than the last point we created. So we're just gonna go a little too far there, I think. And just pick a few more there again. So this another point on the tee box is 68 yards away with 390 to the green. Pretty much got that one bang on straight away. Happy days. I love when that works out. I suppose just looking at this course firsthand, very easy to see that this one's going to cause some plant meter issues. That's a fact. The amount of fauna and cacti and everything that's going to need to go in here. Oh, it's gonna be crazy, but no, I'm really looking forward to it. 69389. Do 69. Okay, and do 62387. Davy Mac just. Oh, fair play, Davy. Was it 62387? Yeah, it was. Maybe if I pull that back fully. There we go. And that's going to be our next tee box. So this is pretty much going to wrap around down here, up, around, over. So that's pretty much our tee boxes measured out. I mean, we know exactly how they're going to flow, what shape they're going to take based on the reference points that I've done. But that's pretty much how you go ahead and get your tee boxes done. Now we move on to, I suppose, actually, hold on. Oh, there's a fourth tee box. I didn't see that one. A little further ahead, it's actually in the rough, which is probably why I couldn't see that. Just so looking, so used to looking at the sand. So we've got a tee box that is 156 and 307. The handy thing about this is it's a perfect circle, which is just everything when it comes to designing RCRs. It's really nice to have that perfectly shaped tee box. It's the small things in life. So that was what, 156 307. So 156 307 is going to actually just bring us to the center of that tee box. Do do do. So it's 156 and 307. Okay. Then let's just go on and get some reference points. So the front of so it's basically a perfect circle. So it's just 5 yards by 5 yards by 5 yards. So we're just gonna go make this 10 times easier for ourselves than picking different reference points. I know them all off the top of my head. So, and then we just go back 10 yards the other way. I cannot wait for this cold to just go. I'm so tired of just coughing and sniffling, and I'm sure you're tired of listening to it by now. And again, just 5 yards out that way. A little too far. Yeah, I'll take that. I'm not, like I said, I mean, if it's out by 0.04, then, well, we'll just let it be out by 0.04. And there we go. Okay, so that is all 4 tee boxes mapped out. Now what I want to go and do is work on the fairway. Okay, so the really handy thing about this course right now, and I think this is why this is the main reason I suppose for picking it, was that it doesn't have a huge amount of reference points on it. It wasn't gonna doesn't have too many twists and turns in it. therefore making it a lot easier to show you. And again, it's the same principle over and over again. I just pick the start of the fairway, and I can see on the app that it's 197 yards away from the tee and 264 to the green, and that's from the very back tees. So 197, 264. So go back to those tee pegs, distance marker, add distance. Gone way past 197, 262. Just keep going. Uh, 197, 264. So there's our starting point of the fairway. The first twist and turn there is just over to the left hand side. So that's 208,255. Now, here's the thing I'll say is that this method I'm showing you is not exactly the way I do it right now. Only because, well, after a long time of doing this, I kind of just shortened it a bit for myself. But for anyone who's starting out, I think this is a really good place to start. It just kind of gets you used to using all the tools, which I think is more important than anything really. So 208, 255, bang on. So what happens there is I've got the start point, and there's my first turn on the fairway essentially. So the fairway continues on fairly straight, nothing too substantial. I can use my method of how I plant the fairways to create some of the tiny little subtle twists and turns. Again, that's a later video, but some fairways they're not perfectly straight, so you might need to manipulate a few things to get there. I'm racing ahead by saying that. You can ignore that for now. But again, just any little bends, any little twists and turns, your best thing to do is go out and reference them first anyway. So our next turn on the hole is 245, 220. I also just realized what I said back there was a complete contradiction. So me personally, again, because I've designed I think 10 or 11 courses by now, that I'm just used to how it works, and I know little shortcuts and things I can do, so I will show you those, absolutely, but I recommend staying to the way I'm doing it at the moment. And that's simply just because, again, like I was saying earlier, just gets you used to all the tools. So the next point on the fairway is 283, 181. If you want to speed things up here, that yards to tee and the yards to green up at the top is always in your favor. So if you don't fancy using that measuring tool over and over again, despite the fact that I keep recommending you do for the moment, you can literally just bring that model or that icon thing all the way up till you hit. So that's our last point. So 283, 181. 283. There's 283, 181. What you do is hit measure. Now, when you hit that measuring, it has a starting point and an ending point. So there's your starting point, and there's your ending point. Done. So that's the next point. So rather than having to come back here the whole time, now, because I'm just used to building them now, I don't bother and I just start pulling out my reference points. But to be honest, either of them are really good, but for obvious reasons, stick to the measuring tool, and then once you get used to the actual tools itself and how they work, then branch out. So the next point is 324 yards, and it is 139 to the green. so in the wrong direction there. So 3, what was it? 324, 139. Here's our next point. Next one again then is 330 to 130. So I'm doing all this talking about saying you should use the tool, so I'm going to go back and do likewise. Again, it does make it a little longer, but you know, sacrifices you make, you know. So 330, 130, bang on. Okay, so our next point then up here is, it's actually not far away from this one. It is 338, 121. So 338. Actually, if I just pull that back, yeah, there we go. 338, 121. Next one then is again not far from it. We're going to start working our way back in a minute. So it's 325, 133. Sometimes they just work like that, where you just go out there, place it down, and it's like, yeah, that's exactly where it's supposed to be. So now we're working our way back in on the opposite side of the fairway. Reference point is 293, 165. Okay, so 293. And just put another one again here at 252, 207. So 252 from the tee. Oops, wrong one. And that is, so 252, 207. Now, I suppose a question you're probably starting to wonder now is, there's so many yellow lines there, how do I stop myself getting confused? Just gonna, for the time being when you're starting, you're just gonna have to bear with it. Just make sure you look for all these little axes here, because those points are what you're looking for. Back here it gets very muddled, you're like, oh my god, what's tied to what? But just use your points, use your app, and you won't have any issues. Okay, I've actually completely lost what that one was supposed to be. So 252, I think it was 207. Okay, and then our next point is actually going to be the part that brings that fairway together. So it's going to be right back down. It's 203 from the tee, 255. It's funny though, I think this video is, it's going to show people more than anything, you know, people ask how long my courses take, and some of them take like 200 hours of actual design time, and kind of go, how does it take that long? And Then you get to see a video like this, and you're like, yeah, yeah, I get it now, because this is just the mapping it out. Like there's the getting the fairways, the greens, and everything else like that down. Then you have to sculpt it. Then you have to plant it. So it takes its time, but it's always worth it. 203, 255. I'm gonna grab a drink now in a second because my throat is getting very dry. So 203, 255, and it's just gonna be in a little bit. I've gone in too far there now. Okay, so there is essentially the first fairway planted out. Now this fairway is got essentially got two parts to it. There's a little bit of rough. There's some desert area basically to clear, and then beyond that, then you have um, again more rough, a little bit of fairway, and the green. So I'm not going to focus in on the rough in this because we could be here all night if I do. Um, but I'm mainly going to focus in just on mapping out of the fairway and the extras. I suppose we'll cover later. Um, any questions? Fire them into the chat or after the video or anything like that. And I didn't explain myself correctly because I'm terrible right now for some strange reason at basic English. So if anything I'm doing or anything I've said that didn't quite make sense to you, just let me know and I'll be able to clarify it more for you. Um, okay, so the second part of the hole then is in around the green. So what we're going to do is, I think we might just start with the green here, just because there isn't a whole pile of fairway that we have to do. So I reckon if we stick with the green, we'll be doing well. It'll definitely work better for us. So if we go back along that red line, 14 yards. Because we're using that as it's a handy way to use it as a reference point for the front of the green. It worked out this time anyway, that it was the front of the green. So there's the front of the green. Now there's that. So again, 8 yards, and it's actually just straight out across. If we use the tee to green line, and it's continuing to use that line as a reference point, just because when you get this close to the flag, it's harder to get everything as accurate as you possibly can using the distances. And the reason for that is because 455 yards and 15 yards to the green can also be the same thing if I go this way, or 444 and 15. Like, I mean, it's the same either side. So the best thing to do is really just getting close. Use the waypoint as your reference and engage in what direction and how many yards it's going. So I know that if I go, it's 8 yards directly right from here. Then the next one is 20 yards, and it's at roughly a 45-degree angle. Okay. a 60-degree angle off that straight line. Now I know angles isn't as accurate as I'd like, but it's worked for me before. That's the way I like to do it. It works for me. I'm just gauging this visually, but this is why having crystal clear pictures works really, really well, so that you'll be able to manipulate later on and making sure that everything works. So on a direct straight line using the waypoint is going to be 16 yards. So we use the red line. Straight up on that red line, 16 yards. I'm actually after missing a point there, so there's one. It's kind of in between the two of these. And it's 24. 23.99. You're not going to get much closer than that to it. Then we're going to choose the next point again, which is So it's a very similar angle to. So when we choose the theta green line, so it's the yellow line as opposed to the red one, and it's roughly 120 degrees off that. I know this isn't exact, but like I said, it's actually it's bang on this flag line. That just worked out perfectly. Yeah, it's not 100%. It's not ideal, but it's my way of mapping them out. Unfortunately, we don't have any LiDAR data for consoles, so I suppose some part of it you got to wing it. It's essentially impossible to create 100% like for like, so you just do what you can. This one is also 13, sorry, on that same line. We'll go 13.15. Again, we can manipulate that later on. We're just using this as reference points. And this is pretty much the last one, actually. It'll bring us around to us the front of the green. And it's 14 yards, and it kind of falls on this one here. So we're going to use that line that's going straight up from the flag and bring it down 14. Now, if you want to, I'm going to do this just so you can bring the green to life. So now that we've got like the green, we've got a couple of tee boxes and all that kind of crack marked out. Filling them in is, I suppose, the next point. So I'm just going to fill in one of these just to kind of give you an idea of how it's done. So again, using that edit menu that's there, you're going to come down to create add. You're going to have the option there to create a surface. You're going to have the option of creating bunkers, greens, fairways, rough, heavy rough. Not 100% sure why you can't create your own tee box. I don't understand why in the game the only way you can have tee boxes is by auto generation. Kinda sucks. Not a big deal, because what I tend to use instead is I use my greens. So I just create greens for tee boxes because, you know, makes them look really, really nice and pristine. Depending on the course, some people like to use fairway surfaces for their tee boxes. So, you know, each to their own, I suppose, in that retrospect. So we're going to create a green. We're going to we're going to use the option for spline as opposed to brush, because brush you basically have to stick with these specific shapes, and they're just not going to work for an RCR. You can try it, but you'll be pulling your hair out trying to get the bloody thing to look nice. And that's speaking from experience. Again, I've made some mistakes to. You have to make them really to be able to learn from them. So what you do is you go along, you take that yellow box and you hover it over each point. When you're happy, click X and it marks them all down. I'm gonna click on that point again. Now what this is going to do is create the shape of the green, and once it's all filled in, you have the option then to go ahead and make little subtle changes to the lines to be able to have it fit in correctly. But I'm not going to do that with you in this episode, but I'm just going to give you an idea of how to bring a green to life, for example. So now that we've got basically a marker on every marker, press the back button and a green starts to appear. Okay, what we do from here then is if you hover back over one of these yellow points, it gives you spline point down the very bottom. Click on that, click edit. Now I can go down here to close the path. So what it does is it picks the first point and the last point, seals it off. Okay, then there's all that space in the middle. Just go down, click fill spline, the whole thing's filled in. So now that looks kind of square for a green, which is fair enough. But for starters, that's a pretty good place to start. We're not going to worry too much about fixing it. There's small little things you can do if you're interested in checking them out at least. If you go back into edit option, you have the option to do an auto sharpen or smooth the path. So if I hit smooth path, watch what happens here. And then it starts to look like an actual green. And if I go back to my the actual course itself, it's not far off what it actually looks like in real life. And that is essentially how to bring an RCR green to life right there. We're going to go back now and finish off adding in the little bits of fairway. We've got a couple of more minutes left in this video. There's not a whole pile left to do. Basically, I just wanted to show you in this of how to get your course started, how to mark out your first hole, and then how to continue on from there. So we're nearly actually done the first hole. Just going to get the last of this fairway put in. So we've got, what's it, 447, 15 yards to the flag. So we go back to this tee box, distance marker, add, lost that point there again. So 445. There we go, just to wrap it up completely, we're going to bring it all the way up. Okay, so that's, and then we're going to use the other side. Now there's also bunkers and stuff on here, but I think that's pretty self-explanatory from how I've mapped up the hole so far as to how you would go ahead and map that as well. So this is 443 and 15. So there's like a little bit of room there, give or take. So I'm just going to go back at the image. I think it should be about here. Okay. Should probably turn up the brightness on my phone. It might help see things a bit easier. Not that my eyesight is bad or anything, just... okay, 29 yards, so 429.29 to the flag. So 428.32. Bang on again. And just the last point there, which is 37 yards to the green, so 437. There we go. Now, just because I put the green in, I might as well put this piece of fairway in as well. Again, very, very same idea. Create surfaces, fairway, spline it. Now, just to get rid of that edge, because I really don't like the look of that edge, if you click back, you can just remove that up a little bit. Okay. And I don't really want to smooth it too much, I just want to smooth down here. So I can actually, and I can smooth this particular corner. Okay, that edge is actually leaking out there a little bit. And then again, it's just pretty much, you can fill that in using the fill spline option. And there you've got a fairway and a green. So that's pretty much kind of it for the first hole. Again, I'm going to be going through this creating surfaces and stuff in a few later videos, but for the moment anyway, I'm just going to focus on getting the basics down. Okay, so where do you go from hole one to the next hole? Pretty much. So here is pretty much very, very straightforward. I'm not going to go through the rigmarole of laying out the whole entire hole, measuring out everything. I'm going to show you how you just go ahead and get your reference points to move on. Like, how do you make the course flow the way it's supposed to? So again, you just need to go back into that app, right? Make sure it's opened on the page you wanted it on. Okay. All you need to do is click, so there'll be a button down the bottom of the screen. It'll say, next hole, second hole, and it'll bring you straight there. It'll show you that where the T point is, where the green is. So now that you can see where the tee box is, you can also see where the green is. What I want you to do is go back. So hit back to that first hole, and that reference point that you were using to measure out the different angles on the fairway, what I want you to do is, if you bring that reference point all the way up to the second tee box, and it will tell you that from that first tee box, let me just get this centralized now, there we go, it is 571 yards from the first tee to the second tee. and it's 162 yards from the first green to the second tee. And that is essentially how I do it. So go down here, distance marker, add distance marker, and what was it, 571, 162, so 571. Okay, so that's going to be my second tee box. Then what I do from there is just bring it all the way up to the green. So I'm just going to double check where it had that flag for the second hole. It was pretty central, which is perfect. And I can just go back to that first hole and move that reference point to the center of the second green, which is 1101 yards from the tee, 644 from the green. Also, the best tip I can ever give you for designing courses, save it as often as you can. It might be okay for the first while, but after a while, when you start to add certain items to it, it's going to start blue screening on you. And that's a fact. It's just going to happen. I wish I could tell you why it happened, but yeah, it's just going to happen. It's just the way it is, sadly. Frustrating and all as it is, it's just going to happen, and you're just going to have to get on with it. So every couple of minutes, make sure to save it. Perfect. So it's 1101, 644. So now I have my tee box, I have my green. Now if I click onto that hole, it tells me from tee to green that it's 556. So this should be pretty accurate. It might be out by a yard or two, but this is how we tell if we've got it right. Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. Oh, false alarm. Oh, I hate that. Oh man, nose feels all tingly. I'm so sorry about that. Whew. Okay, so it was saying it's 556. It's definitely out a bit, alright. I've got 545, so let me just double check that again. Ah, yeah, that reference point isn't to the center. It's actually... because we use the center of the tee box, which would explain why that isn't bang on. Because when I went to the marker, it had a position for the back of the tee box where I was using the center. So 545 is bang on. Okay, so what I want to do then is go into create ad, create holes, place it. Now, oh yeah, there's 3 points. Tee, fairway, green. So let's place that green down there. And there we go, there's your second hole. So again, like we did with that first hole, when you first click into it, it gives you reference points. This one is giving me one for 339. You can't hit the ball that far in this game on the carry, so I'm going to just pull that back to about 290. We'll do so 290, 280. So let's just move this waypoint. Actually, what I'm going to do first is, just because on that tee box, when I was measuring to find the tee box, I used the center of it, not the back. So I need to make that realignment there. I need to move it 7 yards further back, and then I'll be able to get everything done perfectly. What am I doing it? I should be measuring that. And then we just take the tees. Oop. And move the tees all the way back. And there we go. So now we need, what was it, 290, 280. Move waypoint. 290. And that's going to be our second hole. And then from here on, it literally is just rinsing and repeating. Going through the app, just using that little four-way axis point, little aiming marker, manipulating it, just picking out your different points in the fairway to plot it out. And what you'll end up having once you're finished is something that looks like that. You're going to have, you've 1, 2, 3, 4 tee boxes there. You're going to have your fairway, and then there's more fairway and green. Once you're finished that, then it's just a case of using the previous hole as a reference for the next hole. So once I'd created this first hole, it was just a case of using the app, flicking to the next hole, seeing exactly where that tee box and where that green was, come on the app, come back to the first hole, and then place that little aiming marker on the tee box. How far is it away from the first tee and the first green? And that gives you the point to measure out where that tee box is. Same thing for the green. Use the aiming marker, move it all the way up to that green. How far is that away from the first tee box? How far away is that from the first green? And there you go. There you have your measurements. Best way to double check it then is to just draw a line, or measure a line I should say, from the tee box that you've pointed out to the green, and if it matches up, then you've done it right. If you haven't, just do it again. After that, then it's just repeating everything we did for the tee boxes, for the fairway points, for the green. Just rinse and repeat. And once you've done that, then you are on your way to a course. So it does take a little bit of time, but once you get used to it and you figure out some little shortcuts for yourself, you'll fly through it in no time. So listen guys, thank you for watching the video, for joining me, for sitting through my I suppose what can look like something that's incredibly quite tedious, but thank you so much for sitting in and watching. I'll have a new video on pretty soon. I'm actually just going to go through my notes here and see what I've actually planned. So there won't be another video, I suppose, until I have marked out the entire course, pretty much. The reason for that is, again, the next video is going to be about creating surfaces. So I know I did a little bit there earlier on it, but it's going to be about your using splines versus brushes, planting tee boxes, fairways, greens, bunkers, etc., etc. So what I want to do is I want to make sure I have the entire course done out first, or at least measured out, and then we can go through all that. So what I'm going to be doing in the background, between now and the next video, is doing exactly this. Just rinse and repeating the whole way through for 18 holes, and then we'll be back on to do some more. So like I said, if you have any questions, hit me up on PSN. It's Carlos1991. Comment on the video below. Hit me up on Facebook. If you're in a group, you pretty much know where to find me anyway. But like I said, thanks guys for tuning in, and yeah, thanks for listening. Have a good evening. Bye bye.